If you ask me why I shoot Leica, the first answer is always going to be the same. They make some of the best and most interesting glass in the world. Instead of chasing sterile MTF chart glory, they create lenses with story and purpose. Now imagine pairing this glass to a sensor that's gonna thrive in tough lighting conditions, a body that can withstand tough equatorial temperatures, and an autofocus algorithm that can really make something like portraiture truly effortless. That's the Leica SL3-S in a nutshell. This isn't your leisurely stroll through a Tuscan vineyard type of camera. No, this is a snarling sports saloon in a tuxedo. The thing that politely offers you an espresso, then launches you down the Autobahn at breakneck speeds without spilling a drop. I've had the privilege and the occasional terror of using the SL3-S for over a year now. From the chills of Antarctica to the heat of India to the rooftops in New York and the streets of Buenos Aires. This camera has been beaten, baked, and bathed more times than I care to admit. And you know what? It hasn't complained once. Leica calls this their fastest camera yet, and they're not wrong. It's fast to focus, fast to shoot, and even fast to empty your bank account. Yet every time I pick it up, I'm reminded why I agreed to put my name behind it. This is a camera that's not built for spec chasers and engineers. No, it's built for storytellers. In this review, I'm going to share a complete look at how this camera performed for me all over the world, what improvements I'd still like to see in the future, and why this has become the single most valuable camera in my kit. Before I continue, I will say that this review was first published on my photo club, so if you're not already a member, it's free to join, and that's where I publish weekly stories around my photography journey. I'll also mention that given my proximity to Leica and a bunch of people that work there, I've left a disclaimer at the end of this video. If you know how Leica operates, the specs of the Leica SL3-S kind of read like a fantasy novel. There's a few expected tropes and a few surprises that catch you off guard. At the heart of all this sits a full-frame, backside illuminated CMOS 24 megapixel sensor. That's a mouthful. Now, here's the thing. This is a sensor that favors speed, but it then begets the question, is 24 enough? I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. In this quest for megapixel supremacy, I believe that manufacturers and consumers have lost the plot. Cameras have been shipping with more and more megapixels than consumers know what to do with. And there's this idea that it's a linear relationship, that the more megapixels you have, the better a camera is. Truthfully, this is more of a curve, where at some point there are diminishing returns. I shot with the SL3-S for a campaign that ended up on storefronts and advertisements all over the world, and I can confidently say that 24 megapixels is plenty for most people. When you pair this with a modern lens, especially an APO offering from Leica, the results are stunning. The catch is this: if you are someone that regularly crops, and there's nothing wrong with this, but you regularly crop to get your final story, or you're a studio professional that needs resolution for your clients, for your deliverables, and you're often in controlled environments, then the SL3-S might not give you that fantasy ending. But if you know how to work a scene and you frame decisively and you are often in fast-changing environments, well, that's where the SL3-S turns resolution into an advantage. Speed without compromise. The quality of the images from the Leica SL3-S, like any camera, largely depend on the glass you put in front of it. But that doesn't mean the sensor is unimportant. What Leica is doing here with the sensor and the image pipeline is creating these 14-bit RAW files that are packed with tonality. The files here, they tend to have a little bit more contrast and vibrancy than their M lineup, but it's something that I think most people appreciate. And while I've hinted at it earlier, let me spell it out more clearly here. If you are investing in a system like this, I highly recommend getting an APO lens. These are lenses that are crafted to the highest degree in Wetzlar, and they unlock the full potential of this system. It's something that just feels larger than life, especially on a sensor like this. Think of this less as buying a lens and more like choosing the most refined brush to bring your painting to life. The The Leica SL3-S is powered by the Maestro 4 processor. Now, we've seen this chip in other Leica bodies, but here it feels unleashed. It's the same engine, tuned like a race car for a lighter payload. Sharper, faster, and built to move this sensor into overdrive, especially when it comes to autofocus. With a more manageable resolution and a dramatic increase in autofocus points, the SL3-S delivers an autofocus performance that is more confident and predictable. The secret is choosing the right autofocus profile and mode for what you're about to capture. Do that, and it's like being the only driver on the track that knows every turn before the race even begins. Whether it was in the field or in the studio or bright conditions or candlelight, the SL3-S locks into eyes with confidence. There's less of that hesitation. And this is great in the studio where you're gonna get more hits than misses, but it's especially useful when you're in a faraway place and you only have one chance at a street portrait. What impressed me most was how this camera would perform in dynamic environments with multiple subjects. You don't have this flickering between subjects. No, it locks into one person and stays there until you decide to move the point. Let's be real here. Leica's autofocus history has been rocky, but the SL3-S is different. Whether it was dancers in near darkness or vendors in chaotic markets or wildlife that refused to stand still, the SL3-S performed with confidence. It's something that really feels like a milestone for the brand. For the first time, Leica's autofocus feels like a partner you can trust in any environment and not a gamble that you hope pays off. I'm not done with the race car analogies because the speed improvements bleed into many other features on the Leica SL3-S. First, you have the continuous shooting. At 5 frames per second in a 14-bit mode, this is great for studio work where color accuracy and tonality are key. But if you want something that's faster, you can kick this up to 30 frames per second where somehow the autofocus performance feels like it improves. While this mode drops the raw image to a 12-bit file, you gain this massive increase in speed that can make the difference between capturing the moment and not. Seriously, 30 frames per second can sound like overkill until you find yourself in a situation that's faster than your reflexes. A bird taking flight, a martial artist slipping a strike, or a singer in a performance hall where light, expression, and style all line up at the perfect moment. The SL3-S catches those moments and politely stores them in an 8GB buffer that really feels generous on a camera like this. What pushes this even further is the move to a CF Express B card slot as a primary storage solution. Here, when you're capturing files, it happens ridiculously fast, and those speed benefits translate to when you're offloading footage as well, and I'll get to more about this in the next section. This is like watching an all-star pit crew change your tires and refuel in the blink of an eye. It's something that really is advantageous, and you'll notice when you come from a camera that only used SD cards. Another speed improvement you'll notice with this camera is when you're using the Leica Photos app. This is by far the best companion app for a camera on the market, at least if you're asking me. And being able to quickly, even faster than the Leica SL3, transfer images to your phone in the moment and do it reliably is incredible. I found this invaluable in my travels around the world where I capture portraits of strangers and want to quickly share that image with them. From shutter speed to buffer depth to file transfers, the SL3-S is tuned for incredible performance. Every system is built to move faster, and that speed reshapes how you shoot, share, and deliver. The Leica SL3-S has dreams of Hollywood with all the advancements made to the video side on this camera. The ability to capture 6K 30p footage in an open gate format is great for anamorphic lenses or cropping for multiple formats. The ability to output this at 5.9K in a RAW format to an external recorder extends the versatility. But where the real magic lies, at least if you're asking me, is the internal ProRes recording. To capture Cinema 6K footage in a 10-bit 422 format in ProRes with a generous bit rate that captures a lot of tonality, and to do this internally is a powerful storytelling feature, one that you appreciate when you get behind this camera. With the versatility of the L mount, you can navigate a nimble setup or scale up as needed, depending on what your storytelling needs are. And look, if video is not part of your journey, then these advancements may not mean much to you. But if you're just starting out, maybe you're curious, or whether you look to get your first short film out the door, these advancements will feel less like spec bumps and more like a film companion that'll unlock your creativity. Let me also take a moment to stress that not all types of video encoding behave the same way. While many cameras will tout 10-bit 422, they may have different subsampling, compression, chroma quality, dynamic range, and more. What the engineers at Leica have implemented in the SL3S is hitting top marks. The fidelity and richness of what's being captured on this camera give you the ingredients that will hold up on any screen, from YouTube to the cinema. Where the SL3S stumbles is high frame rate recording. For aficionados of 60p, the heavy crop might be a deal breaker. For those that need 4K 120, well, doing this in HD might just make this camera off the table. If full frame 4K 60p was a non-negotiable for you, let's be honest, I don't think a Leica camera was ever on your wish list. For aspiring filmmakers that might be photographers first, that are looking to make inroads in the video world, the SL3S brings a lot to the table, especially with its cinema focus tools. Cine Mode unlocks features like shutter angle, waveforms, and custom LUTs to elevate the filmmaking experience. Direct recording to SSDs offers an accessible option for long takes or working in environments where additional CF cards are scarce. And video profiles, while not perfect, still provide a practical way to store frequently used settings. When it comes to video, the Leica SL3S offers enough depth to truly earn the hybrid label. Photo and video come together here like a motion picture with an unforgettable original score. It's not about a perfect camera, because no camera is. What I'm saying is that this is Leica's most competitive mirrorless offering yet. Where the Leica SL3S truly separates from the pack is when it comes to design. This is where they begin to build a real following and leave tech tubers and spec sheet chasers scratching their heads. The Leica SL3S specifically is the most beautifully designed mirrorless SLR on the market. Understated, elegant, and confident enough to skip the white paint on the script, leaving only a red dot for a pop of color against its stealthy profile. The real achievement of this camera is not all the features that they packed in. It's the fact that it's packed into a solution that doesn't feel like a soulless computer. Too many cameras nowadays feel like vending machines that dispense sterility, and Leica works against that. With the SL3S, you have something that feels like an intentionally crafted tool that's begging to be used. Buttons and dials are kept to the essentials, most without labels, which makes the design feel purposeful instead of cluttered. If you look at the camera market, a lot of these things look like someone glued a calculator to a lunchbox. The SL3S, this looks like it was designed by artists for artists. And look, there's always gonna be a subset of individuals that think that this design philosophy is hype, it's over dramatic, it's something that people talk a little too much about, a little too romantic about even. And to them I say, good for you. Here's the thing, just because that might not be important to your journey, doesn't mean it's not important to others. I strongly believe when something looks good and feels good, it makes you want to use it more. A camera that makes you want to pick it up more is an advantage. This design, though, hides some real-world toughness. The Leica SL3S is one of a handful of cameras that's IP54 rated. Not weather-resistant marketing fluff, but a tested and validated badge of durability. I've used this camera in torrential rain, freezing sleet, and dusty winds. I've rinsed salt off of this body more times than I care to admit. It hasn't failed me once. Look, a camera is useless if it dies before the shot. And this one, at least in my year plus using it, simply refuses to die. The SL3S features a gorgeous 5.76 million dot EVF that feels vibrant, especially at higher frame rates. The two-way tilting LCD makes high and low angles effortless. And the touch interface is super responsive. There is this lag when you're interacting with the interface in playback, but I'm hoping that that can be addressed in future firmware updates. There's also a practical selection of ports: USB-C, mic, headphones, timecode, and a full-size HDMI. Even the joystick, plain as it looks, works better than most of the space-age toggle switches that other brands try to sell you. The user interface also deserves special mention because Leica still wears the crown here. It's clean, intuitive, without feeling too minimal. You can customize it to a relative degree, and while video profile still needs some maturing, it's very easy to get to the settings you want and then out and back into shooting. The trade-off of all this great design and durability is that the Leica SL3S is on the heavier side when it comes to mirrorless cameras, especially when you pair it to one of the premium SL lenses. While I believe that now, in my relative youth, that the juice is worth the squeeze, I wouldn't complain if the payload was just a little bit lighter. Then there's the new power button. This now unlocks a few new features compared to the Leica SL2S, with remote activation and being able to trigger this from a distance. Here's the thing though, it hasn't quite matured. See, you can quickly hit the button to go into a sleep mode or press and hold to turn it off, but there's inconsistencies here where it might not do one or the other, and oftentimes when you're waking it, there is a bit of a delay. I feel like this is something that can be ironed out and should be ironed out in future firmware updates. But I've had these misses and I've had these moments where the camera isn't completely turned off, which translated into a dip in battery life that just has me pondering what would it feel like if this worked as confidently as a power switch. I've grown to accept this change and I've adapted to it, so it's happening less and less, but it's an area where I would like to see input lag and wake ups, the programming around it at least, just refined a little bit more. Overall, from hardware to software, the Leica SL3S feels like it was designed to survive another planet. Okay, a little hyperbole there, but this thing is tough, it's sleek, and deeply human in its usability. It's not flawless, but easily among the best examples of modern camera design. There are a few more features that help set the Leica SL3S apart in the market. The native ISO stretches from 100 to 200,000 with a dual gain architecture. This delivers phenomenal results in tough light and also offers a second ISO ceiling when filming video in tough conditions. The 5-axis image stabilization is not a leader in the market, but it still works incredibly well and something that performed exceptionally when I was photographing in Antarctica, where the lens and the body came together to give me crisp results even while standing in a moving zodiac. The inclusion of the content authenticity chip, which was previously only available in the Leica M11P, was a surprise. This is something that I will use occasionally in the field where I want to further authenticate the work. Now, I don't use it all the time because it does impact performance and how quickly you can shoot. But for sensitive or historical moments, it's a very special feature. Then there's the improved multi-shot mode. This is not a party trick. You can now use this camera handheld, and with the sensor subtly shifting to build a final image up to 96 megapixels, the results are staggering. Like I mentioned earlier, resolution isn't everything, and this shouldn't be a primary reason to buy this camera. But for controlled environments where you have the time to hold still and a cooperative subject, it can produce something truly magnificent. I found myself in a situation standing in front of the abandoned home of my grandmother. So I set up this camera and captured this image because genuinely I didn't know if I would be here again or whether the home would be there when I came back. And that makes this a really special feature. Leica could have stopped with the headline features and still had a competitive camera. Instead, they layered in thoughtful touches that elevate the experience. It feels less like buying a tool and more like being given the keys to a concierge service. The details may not be flashy, but they quietly remind you that someone went the extra mile to make sure your needs were met and anticipated before you even asked. More than a year after the launch of the Leica SL3, owners have seen a steady stream of updates, bug fixes, refinements, and even major additions like internal ProRes recording. There's also a roadmap for Frame I/O support, which will open up powerful workflows for professionals. The Leica team clearly doesn't rest on its laurels. They've proven time and time again that they'll keep improving their cameras long after the launch window. With that in mind, here are a few ways the SL3S could get even better. The most talked about improvement is around the EVF, where when you are using the magnification feature with manual focus lenses especially, there's a drop in resolution, which is strange because the predecessor didn't perform this way, and I'm hoping that this is something that gets addressed in a future update. Another feature that I miss is the favorites menu. While the control panel can be customized to a degree, I miss being able to have these lesser common features map to the first page when I go to menus. Leica cameras that are powered by a Maestro 4 processor have the ability to download Leica looks from the Leica Photos app. And this is a great feature where you can have these very unique profiles to your JPEG file. I'd love the ability to customize contrast, white balance, dynamic range, sharpness of these Leica looks to have an even more refined profile that I can use in the field. This is ambitious, but something that I think is worth pursuing. Battery life on this camera is respectable, but it's not stellar, which is gonna make you pack a few more, especially if you're gonna be practicing a lot of video. Using a vertical grip or charging via USB like I am right now is great, but battery life is something where I'd love to see Leica really push the envelope even further. On the video side, there are a few upgrades that would make the SL3S even more competitive. My top requested features would be false color support for even more precise exposure, an improved video profiles menu, the ability to go into slower frame rates and customizable timelines, advanced monitoring options that allow you to monitor your video with a D-squeeze or 9:16 frame lines, and something even crazy, but probably doable, is RE Log C3 or Log C4 support. This is all a tall order for a very nimble team in Wetzlar, but even if you check off a few things on this list, it suddenly makes this camera even more valuable for serious filmmakers. One thing I've always appreciated about Leica is their long-term commitment to support. It's not uncommon for new features and shortcuts to arrive years after release, long after most brands have abandoned their cameras altogether. That consistency builds trust. Now, you should never buy a camera based on the hope that it's gonna get better performance over time, but Leica has earned my confidence that the camera I own today is gonna feel so much more richer in the years to come. My only hope is that the SL3S improves in a way that matters most. Before I get to the competition and the market, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that is Espresso displays. I've been using these displays all over the world for over a year now, and long before they were an official sponsor, it's something that really became an invaluable tool. Whether I was traveling with a MacBook or a Mac Studio, I would rely on these displays to really open up my editing potential, especially in the field. At home, I got two of these beside my Apple Studio display, and when I'm traveling, I'll often bring the 15-inch Pro for a very versatile setup. And I've even been crazy enough to use this in business class of a flight. Yes, this is absurd, but something that was possible. The reason I love these displays is that it gives me the real estate to get my work done, but the color accuracy and resolution make for an experience that is truly enjoyable. And the build quality really incentivizes you to use this everywhere. If you've been looking for a travel-friendly, high-quality display for your creative work, I highly recommend Espresso displays. And if you want to save on your first purchase, visit the link in the description. I'm gonna say something that might alienate a few of you watching, but I promise you, I'm not saying this for shock value. The Leica SL system doesn't have any real competition. Nobody else in the market is prioritizing the key pillars that Leica is here. Now, it does limit the mass appeal to a general audience, but it helps protect it against short-term fads and long-term attrition. Let's start with lenses. I genuinely believe that Leica produces the best lenses in the world. Whether you're comparing it against competition in Japan, China, or elsewhere, you're not gonna find something that is as rich with story as what Leica is producing. Further, when you adapt M lenses, it's still marginally better on an SL body than anything else. Most brands, they chase after this MTF chart superiority, and that's just not the case with Leica. They focus on sharpness where it matters, and everywhere else, they try to inject story. And the result is you don't have this sterile look. You have something that feels precise, but also has this touch of humanity. And you can choose to which level you want that based on the lens that you're getting. Design is another category where the competition falls short. The modern SL line looks and feels better than almost anything else on the market. I wish this wasn't the case. I wish more brands cared about design and made more elegant creative tools. But right now, the only other brand that comes close is an even smaller maison out of Sweden. Durability is another key differentiator. I've tested Canon, Fuji, Lumix, and Sony flagships in extreme cold and heat. All are capable tools, but all have met environmental limits I have yet not reached with the Leica SL3-S. Add in Leica's firmware support and their mobile companion, and you have something that feels like it can thrive for the better part of a decade, no matter where you go. Now, do these three pillars make the SL3-S the best camera on the market? Hell no. No, these are just the three pillars that define this line. And if you value the unique features within the SL3-S, well, this will become an incredible tool for your journey. Of course, there are excellent alternatives as well. If peak autofocus performance is what you're chasing, the Sony a7 IV is tough to beat. If versatility in the field is what you desire, the Canon EOS R3 is a very competitive option. And if value is what's driving your decision making, the Lumix S5 Mark II gives you a ton of value for its price. There's no shortage of options out there, but the Leica SL3-S is not trying to play by the same rules. It's a camera built on three clear pillars: optics, design, and durability. Around those pillars, Leica has added features that range from great to phenomenal, with a few that still need polish. As someone that talks a lot about Leica online in various mediums, I am met with no shortage of dudes that want to go spec for spec or dollar for dollar on the latest Nikon XYZ and why Leica is overrated. And to them, I continually say, read the room. There's no such thing as a perfect camera. As much as we want it to exist, it's just not the case because everyone's needs are gonna be different. And if another brand scratches your itch, more power to you. Here's the thing, put yourself in the shoes of someone that values the three key pillars that define the Leica SL lineup, and you start to see why a solution like this exists. The Leica SL3-S, it's not designed to win a numbers game. It's designed on principles, not spreadsheets. And that's also exactly why I believe it lacks any true competition. So, with everything I've shared and all the context that I've provided, let's ask ourselves this final question. How do you know if the Leica SL3-S is right for you? I believe it comes down to making three key decisions. First, you need to go back to the three key pillars that I talked about. If you value optics, design, and durability, there's a good chance that a Leica SL camera will bring you long-term fulfillment and confidence. This is the first decision you need to make. Next, you need to decide if the unique propositions of the Leica SL3-S are going to cater to your style of storytelling. If you believe that top-tier autofocus and speed matter more than sheer megapixels, you'll be a happy owner. If you find yourself getting ambitious with video, whether that's for social or full-scale productions, you'll find even more joy. Lastly, you need to decide how often you're going to be using this camera. If you are just going to be using it on vacation and every once in a while, well, there are other options, and even from Leica, some previous options that will be perfectly fine for what you're about to do. But if you're a weekend warrior type, a studio stalwart, and you want something that's going to be used day in and day out, well, that's where the SL3-S is going to compound in value, especially with those smaller features that really go and make this thing that much more special in the field. It was these three decisions that first pulled me into the SL system, and they're the same ones that led me to put my name behind this camera. The SL3S is not just the fastest Leica ever made, it's one of the most complete hybrid cameras on the market. It blends speed, image quality, build, and pure shooting pleasure in a way that no other brand has matched for me. It's not perfect, it is expensive, and it even asks you to adapt to some of its quirks. But it rewards you with images and footage that feel alive, and with the satisfaction of using a tool designed for people who care about the craft. If you've been searching for a tool that'll track a dynamic dancer, film a stunning documentary, survive a surprise monsoon, and still make you grin every time you hold it, the Leica SL3S is it. In a world where cameras are increasingly becoming cold computers with boring lenses, the SL3S proves something important. The best creative tools are not just machines. They're instruments that amplify our vision, our story, and ourselves. So there you have it. That is my exhaustive review on the Leica SL3S. And, being able to be named the global launch ambassador for this camera was an extreme privilege. And using this camera to tell all kinds of stories all over the world. We're talking over 150,000 kilometers of travel with this camera by my side. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to do this for a living. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments down below and leave a flag. I've done this before, but leave a flag of where you're watching from. The second thing I'll mention, I talked about it earlier in this video, is that join the photo club that I have. I share a story every other week, and if you're a subscriber, you get a story every week. But that's something that I'm sharing on a regular basis, and it's not just about cameras and lenses, it's about the photography journey. And as much as possible, I'm trying to share some real value that others might find useful. So check that out if you haven't already. And the last thing I'll talk about is that I'm doing a ton of events and workshops all over the world. I'll leave a link down below, but if you're interested in joining a workshop to up your video knowledge, or a studio photography workshop, or you just want to join me on an adventure to the Arctic Circle, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm making available. Check that out down below and feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any specific questions. As always, my name's Gadgen. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is the disclaimer portion of the review, and I'm gonna start including this in any future review. And that's because given my proximity to Leica as well as my sponsors and other imaging brands, I feel like it's only right to talk about this a little bit more openly. You see, I truly believe there's no such thing as an objective review. Whether you're on YouTube or writing for a well-known site, as soon as you have sponsors and affiliate links, there's some sort of influence that permeates this, even at an unconscious level. So pure objectivity, not something that I believe in. What I believe in, though, is sharing my honest experience, using the tools that I use for the stories that I'm telling and talking about them in a very honest and transparent way. Everything I talk about in this review is my opinion. It's not written or read by anyone outside of myself. It's not approved by some other entity. It is genuinely me trying to craft something that is going to be useful for someone that's in the market for said product. So if you came here looking to get an SL3S, my hope is to share enough information that you can make an informed decision. I generally don't care if you buy it or not, or if you end up recommending this to someone else. My hope is to purely create something that is valuable and, yeah, entertaining. That being said, my review structure has not changed. I only talk about the products that I use for my journey. And my hope is to share what I enjoy, what can get better, and who's gonna get the most value from whatever it is I'm talking about. I'm not here to really create this pro-con list and try to incite people to engage with my storytelling. No, I wanna create something for someone that's already looking for whatever it is I'm talking about. So if you are someone that was looking to get an SL3S or decide between SL3S and another camera, my hope is to create something that's informative and entertaining that can help you make a more informed decision. Modern YouTube culture has created this environment where people feel like they need to slam products with this hit list for even the most minuscule things. And often losing context as to what's actually important for the people that are reading these reviews. I find this really stupid because most cameras are better than most photographers. The harder and more valuable task for a reviewer is to actually have an opinion and qualify a product for any given individual. And let me wrap this section on this one thing. My goal is not to become a full-time reviewer or a full-time YouTuber. The reason I do these reviews is because I enjoy them. I haven't done them in a while because I did take a bit of an absence and realized I kind of miss talking about these cameras and lenses that bring me a lot of value. So this is all to say that when I take the time and effort to put together a review, I'm going to take that time and effort to talk about something that has genuinely brought me a lot of value for the stories that I'm telling. And my hope is to share that information with other people that might find that same value for their journey.